Matt, g'day. Bill, hello. Stuart. Peter, etc. This is 8 of you watching. Don't know why, but there you go. You get that in the big jobs. Bill's a little pissed, that's all right. So, what's happening? Mark Osborne, good day. Mark Shed Talk is probably trying to get his Facebook back because I think he got kicked out or terms of service violation or something. I don't know what he said or what he posts. Anyway, Mark Osborne, good day. Anyway, what a weekend. What a crazy week. It's one of those weeks. Don't know if there's much happened. But, I mean, it's all happened, but I don't know if we achieved much. I don't know. Maybe we did. We'll talk about this box in a minute. I was at Friday night. I went down to Fridges. Yeah, Mark Shed Talk. Speak at the devil. Here he is. Friday night I went down to Fridges via Phil's. So I stopped at Phil's for a bit and dropped off and tested things, picked up some stuff, all that sort of stuff, organised some things. Phil was kind enough to find me some scrap brass in exchange for a couple of jobs I'm doing for him. So that's awesome. So I've got 22 kilos of scrap bronze in the back of the car. In exchange, we're casting some plates for him and stuff. So that's cool. So, yeah, I've got enough bronze, in other words, to actually get in and cast this gear. If I can find enough time to do it, we could probably even cast it on Tuesday if I've got that pattern done, but I don't know how that's going to go. We'll see how we go with that. The pattern's quite big 3D print. I could machine one from wood, but then I've got to glue some bits up tonight or tomorrow night or something so I can get in Saturday and actually turn it up. And that's a bit of a job. Probably I could glue some plywood up in the next 24 hours or something and it'd be all right and we could screw it up and put it in the lathe and do it. But my lathe's hardly big enough to spin it, I don't think. It might. To have a look at that. Anyway, that's all. I was gonna 3D print it, the pattern, but it hasn't happened yet. So that's one of the things that we got sorted. Picked up the front canopy irons. Fowler Lilith's had front canopy iron problems because they weren't real good to start with, and they're broken after a bit of road work. Mostly because they weren't welded properly, they were only just tacked, and they're also, we discovered after some investigation, that they were made out of 316 stainless. So that's cool, but they weren't really well attached because of multiple reasons. So we actually, Phil's been a blacksmith, welded them up for us, and they went back on Sunday. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Probably too rough on them, yeah, but it was just one of those things. They were only just sort of turkey dirted together. It was mostly flux inclusions, to be honest. So anyway, did that. What else? Organised to get Phil's veteran Talbot painted some lines and stuff on it. So that's sort of what we're working at with that. So I did a bit of that. What else? That was Friday night. I got into talk to Stuart on the way down and missed the turn, of course, because I was chatting on Discord, and ended up getting into fridges about 1 o'clock, something like that, which is really too late. Was up on Saturday morning and we hydro tested the little Jacko boiler that we used for the weekend, and loaded that up and took it into some friends, into Mackey's, Stuart and William Mackey's in Grafton, and we run his engine as his vintage antique woodshop. He's got a fair lump, I guess 4 horsepower maybe, probably 4 horsepower rotary valve vertical steam engine. That's all set up on line shafting and everything. We run that for the first time, so that was pretty exciting. And of course, it's my birthday, so we had a bit of a birthday cake and stuff too. Thanks, guys. But there you go. Stayed there Saturday night after running the Jacko for a few hours and putting some line shaft belts on and hanging up a couple of line shaft brackets and getting some bearings and stuff all sorted out. Tidied up, getting everything working. That was a pretty good night. And got up Sunday morning. This is... What did we do Sunday? Sunday we packed everything up and went back out to fridges. I got a flat tyre, which is a bit of a pain because it means that I've reached the point that I've got to buy 4 new tyres this next coming week, and that hurts a bit, but got some of it put away in amongst all the other stuff. Gentleman Randy, good day. Yeah, William's got a nice little workshop in there. That's really looking together good. So, Sunday I put the irons back on the... We did a few jobs. Had some issues with the stud in the back of a portable boiler at Dan's, and we sorted that pretty much. There's a bit of a push on, so I'm probably going to have to post him a new stud for that. I have to make one. I made one last week and it's not really right, and I've got one half made here, and it'll only take... Right, honestly, it won't take long to finish it. In fact, I was really feeling that I could finish it tonight. I've got one end of it made. So that's got to be done probably tomorrow night, and I'll get that in the post to him. So did that and put the generator back on the Ferguson and got all that running, and it's actually charging and the lights are working and stuff, so pretty happy with that. It's a bit of a joint effort. Machine NZ, good day. So that was one of the things we did. There was a bit of a list of things Sunday night after Sunday, and then Sunday night I come back home, and I was home at a reasonable time actually. I was home by about 9 o'clock. Monday, what happened Monday? I went and drove around on Monday. What did I do? Went looking for a gasket for a mud hole door for a steam engine, with not much luck. I got some gasket material, but we'll see how that works. What else? Went somewhere else on Monday. Oh yeah, went and bought this box, and I've done a little bit of work to it since. This is a reproduction oil box. These were designed to fit for 8 gallon or whatever they are, 4 gallon oil tins in. And these used to be around everywhere, and the old ones are still around, but they're getting pretty collectible. This guy up Ipswich Way is making these as a reproduction. It's not a bad box. These are inked in, and he's not done a bad job of that, really. I don't think it's quite up to Golden Fleece's HC Slay's original sort of artwork, but it's not a bad box, and it's quite a good job. It's got this artwork on both ends, and he had quite an range to choose from, and this was sort of the closest one because I couldn't make up my mind. Anyway, this is... I'm not sure it's going to be a project that I'm going to do on my own, but it's a project. We need another project like a hole in the head, but this is how it works. What we need is a donation box for events. And because there's less events than there was a month ago, it's not quite as critical as it was probably a month ago, and we've only just started doing it. But I've got this box. I put a couple of bits of pine in here and screwed them in place. There's some nice vintage screws. I'll give this a clean up at some point because that glue's eased out there where I've glued it, where I've clamped it. But I'm going to put, this will probably be the front. I'm going to put some hinges in the back. I've got some hinges, some little brass hinges. There we go. So I'll get the router out and put them in at some point. One there, whatever, and a hinge top. And this is going to be a donation box for Shenandoah Steam Shed. We'll get a board here. Buy a sheet of 10, 12 mil plywood or something and cut. Probably rather than cut it myself. I could cut it myself, but probably get Bunnings to cut a piece for the top here. And we're going to put a bit of a standoff or a cotton reel or a turning or a square corner or something in here, like a pillar between on top of the box lid, and then another lid, if we can imagine that. So we'll have a lid here to close this box off, and then another lid with columns between them. And in here we're going to put a mechanism to control the automaton, which is going on top. I'm expecting this to get a bit of use. I'm expecting it to be a line. I want something that there's a line to. So that's the way to make a donation box. There'll be 2 layers here for the mechanism inside, and probably a lever through here with a crank on the end, something like that, or a crank on the front. And I've probably got a nice vintage crank that'll go on there in here to work either bevel gears or a right angle drive or something, and then gears through here with cranks, etc., to operate a couple of guys on top like little puppets and do something a bit cool and old worldy and a little bit sort of whimsical in automaton. So basically I've drawn this out a bit, and we're going to have a guy with a treadle lathe and another guy stoking a steam engine with the bits that he's making and putting them straight in the steam engine fire. And when you turn the handle, these 2 characters do their thing. And probably also have this sort of perspex in a bit so you can't touch it, and have a slot here for coins or whatever, so that you drop coins on them. Into here, and I have a plate, I think, that turns and with a wiper, so the coins drop off onto another plate that turns with another wiper, so they drop off into a hole here. So you've got to wind this to get your coin from this end to this end, and all this works. So make that sort of interactive. Fridge, that's what you missed. Oh gosh, you pick your times. This is pretty ordinary. Anyway, this is the donation box. We'll start this segment again because fridge has just turned up. Late as always. on Marketplace probably, just at a guess. So got this. William and I have been talking about this a bit, and we're going to make an automaton on top of it with a mechanism in between, some way of moving the coins from one end to the other, whether it's a conveyor or whether it's some sort of a system that moves through, and some gears to operate two little guys on the top layer, and then a couple of walls around here, and a steam engine, boiler sticking out here. I don't know if you can see that. I've got it in my head pretty clear. And probably a treadle lathe and a drill press or something, and a guy like operating that, and some of the line shaft or whatever. That's probably can be added to. Don't get too ambitious. But we're going to have a big stack of stair balustrades or something that this guy's making on the treadle lathe. And putting in a pile here, and then we're going to have the guy with the port bottle and the steam engine picking up these bits and putting them in the fire. So that's sort of might be pretty cool, I think. So that's what we're working on, and probably perspex on top of it. Something like that. Probably, yeah, Dan and a wheel, I think, is probably a pretty good effort. And maybe a Christian asleep in the corner or something. A Ken asleep in the swag in the middle, something like that. But that's what we're going to have. So you crank the handle, you drop your coin in, you crank the handle, and it moves the coin through and drops it into the box, and acts out a little scene on top here. So hopefully that's going to be cool and fun enough that people want to come and do that. So that's what we're working on. That's what that's going to be. And I've got this box. I hope that's sort of in keeping, and we'll put half a sheet of plywood into it and some scrap wood, and we might in a couple of days have something that's pretty good here. I've messed with automaton a couple of times. The most recent one was the coat hanger 2020, the Rust and Ox organised. Made a cool coat hook. I think it was pretty cool. It was very basic but fun. Wind up. Don't know if anyone saw that. It's a while back. But it's 5 years. Geez. Anyway, that's something we're working on. So that was Monday. I went and got this organised, and a little bit of progress maybe with the gasket material. Come home and did some artwork for Phil's car and a few other jobs that were kicking around that needed work. Tuesday, we're up to Tuesday, aren't we? We're up to Tuesday. Tuesday we went up to the foundry. I went up to the foundry. We had our monthly meeting, which is always on the first Tuesday of the month, which I forgot about, or I probably wouldn't have made it that week. But I did get some moulds ready to pour on Friday, so that's good. So some parts will actually be moulded up, so that's very cool. Some plates for Phil and some bits for William, some bandsaw brackets and some main bearings for a little engine, stuff like that. Come home Tuesday and yeah. So that's where we're at, but I don't feel like I don't know if I've achieved much, but I haven't stopped much either. That's where we're at with that. And I went to work this morning. I've had 3 or 4 phone calls on the way to work and coming home and stuff. So, bringing us to that. Rang a man about a hay wagon today, or a mug. That's where we're at with that. Don't know if there's a polite way to tell you that. While we're on that subject, if anyone's local, right? By local, I mean Brisbane or Northern Rivers or Sydney or Toowoomba or wherever, and is interested in a centrifugal die casting equipment setup that's quite good at the right price, get in contact, because I know where there is one. If you're interested in making Mark Osborne, if you're interested in producing, say, tether car tyres or bits like that, might be very useful. There's a lot of industries that it would be very helpful in, from model engineering through to all sorts of things. Can see it have its uses. Anyway, if you're interested in that, give us a shout. I'd like to see the Trades Guild acquire it and use it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'd like to see Shenandoah Steamshed acquire it and use it, but I don't think that's going to happen either, and we haven't even got there because I don't think that it's just not a possibility. But there are some very cool things you could do with it. In the middle of all that, I did a couple of other errands. I dropped the motion covers for the roller off at Sheet Metal Works to get them rolled, because I've test fitted them and we know that they're sort of going to work. So they should be ready to pick up next week. That's great. Pretty happy with that. I stopped in at George Weston and bought some brass, which they were out of stock on, so that's not particularly helpful. I dropped off when I dropped off at Phil's, I picked up some brass for him and dropped that off, and some laser cut, and I dropped off. I didn't get to Mark's, I'm sorry, this weekend to drop off bits to him, but I had every intention. It just didn't happen. Didn't go as far as Caboolture, but apart from that, everything's sort of working. Anyway, if anyone wants to come and give us a hand with some stuff, I'd be more than happy. In particular with this. 3D printer's working flat out. I haven't done anything at all on the little truck, like at all. It's a bit slack. The launch guard, I had every intention of dropping in on Monday, but I left it at home when I left. So that didn't happen. And then I thought I'll do it on Tuesday, and that didn't happen either. So that's still in progress. Also need some 3/16 by ½ inch brass rivets. If anyone knows where you can get them for less than about $2 each, I'd be pretty keen. I don't mind buying $100 worth of rivets, but I'd have to be buying a box of them for that, not like 40. So if you know where I can get them, that's cool. Didn't even attempt that big plate for the other side of that again this weekend. We might have another go at it next week, but we'll see. I've got to get going a bit earlier Tuesday morning to get up there. We'll see how we go with that. What else? Only halfway through, and I think I've talked myself out. That's the whole weekend covered. Haven't even looked at the lathe. Haven't been out to the mill. There's a dozen projects here that I haven't touched. I've got to do some sign painting at some point. If I get this ripped up, I'd like to just get Bunnings to cut it, but the trouble is Bunnings only don't have someone there to cut it all the time. So you call in the morning and there's never ever enough hours in the day after they open before I get to work, or I can call in the night and there's never anyone. So it might have to be next Monday to get a top for this and a second top, get them sorted, and probably what's left I'll rip up at home, but I might get a piece cut out of this for a board and get some paint on that and put donations on it. Yeah, that was hours before you got here. We had a good night at the Mackies. You didn't check the Discord? No, I didn't. That's very true. I got home and I had talked to Joe for a bit, and I rang Henry for a bit. This is what happened. Talked to Henry for a bit about nothing in particular. I had a short talk to Henry. Henry's a engine collector and tool collector who's having a bit of a sale up if anyone's interested in buying his stuff. And I had to talk to Phil too about stuff. Phil's got a 1908. No, it's older than, it's later than that. 1911, maybe 1911 Talbot. Some brass screws, righto. I'll have a look, Peter. Yeah, Talbot 2-seater. Nice little, or a single-seater actually, I think you would call it more appropriately. Nice little runabout car. Gets along all right. It's in pretty good nick. Fully restored. Nice car. And it's dark blue with aluminium body panels, like the bonnet and everything's polished aluminium. So it's quite a nice little runabout. Bit sporty. And he wants a line on it, which I'm excited to do. But we sort of decided on silver, and no one's got any silver pinstripe and paint anywhere in the country. Sadly, One Shot or House of Colour or anything else. If you want silver, like sign writing enamel or lining enamel, no one's got it. So House of Colour do make a nice silver, and One Shot make a nice silver. Bill, you're probably right. I think I could make them at the right price with a form tool, so I might have to make up a form tool or work out an easy way to machine them to diameter size. So can't get silver paint, so I've ordered 500 grams of silver of aluminium powder from Barnes, aluminium pigment powder. They use it for metallic resin casting. Like if you want to cast aluminium resin that looks like aluminium, you put that in it. And it's not crazy expensive, so I've ordered that, and it should be here maybe Friday. And we'll mix that in with a bit of gold size and a bit of varnish, and see if we can get something that'll run nicely on the silver line. So that's the theory there, and we'll get on to that. What else? Got to find a dark blue panel that I can actually paint. To put some sample lines on so I can see what he's getting. So that's another job. Got a Land Rover to paint at some point, pretty close. And I've got a portable engine to put some lines on. So they're the three mates rates jobs I've got to do. The Land Rover door's already paid for, so that's all right. And others are probably going to be gratis in exchange for all the fun that I've had, which is cool. I've also got a swap panel. While we're on the subject of not actually taking on any more jobs and things, there's a swap panel to do with a hot rod theme. I've sort of sketched out some stuff about that too over the weekend, with a sort of a view to starting it. It's not going to be a huge panel this time. It's not going to be a big job. Went all out last year and then the guy didn't turn up to swap it. So hopefully that doesn't happen again and we get I want something I can post. So it's not going to be huge, but I'll sort that out at some point and get a panel ready to go and cut it up, and we'll see how we go with putting some rods and stuff on it, making a sign out of it. So that's cool. What else? That's all the sign writing jobs. Very interested in finding some more though. So if you're interested, very keen on getting a few jobs under my way, because there are things that I'm going to need some cash for. Just so we know. Don't even get me started on that line. But if we can get some club funds in this box, it'd be really good. So I want something that we can probably ideally have ready to go and take to the national rally and have sitting in front of our engines, so people can, we'll see if that's actually if they don't mind that at someone else's rally, but we'll see how that goes. But I'd like to have it ready there just in case. And there's a bit of work in it. William's a wood machinist and he's pretty good, so he's got some good ideas, but I'll probably end up doing most of the work. What else? I haven't made any progress at all on the lanterns. I got one of them working and that was it. I've still got a sign there that I've got to finish. It's all sort of half blocked out and it wouldn't take long to finish it, to be honest. But I was waiting for inspiration. I think I've got some paint to do it and all that stuff as well. Anyway, got to sit there. When the rain stops, we'll get out the front. Here's another job. While we're on the job, I'll put this down. Out of sight, out of mind on this one. I haven't threaded those nuts yet. That's another job that needs to be done. Might be this next coming weekend. I might put some thread on those. But this is the gauge glass protector off the Fowler, which is offered at the moment. Goes around the gauge glass, makes it impossible to read, and stops it blowing up in your face or you bumping it and smashing it. Both those things. It's brass and it's got glass panels in it, like nice cut glass panels. It's attached with 4 studs and it's got nuts through there, so the bottom comes off and the top comes off. Now, what this needs, because this is in an awkward position, it's on about that angle. It might be straight up and down actually, I don't know how it fits. Is it straight up and down? It's probably straight up and down in the roller. Can't remember. But the side of to give you some idea, the side of the bunker's here and the other side of it's here somewhere, so there's not a lot of room, and the doorway's here and you sit back here and it's sort of down on the floor, so to actually, while you're on the engine, get down there and have a look at it and see where the actual water level is a bit tricky. And not only that, it's dark and it's hard to read because there's nothing behind it, so you've got to do the whole like pencil trick. If you hold the pencil behind the tube full of water, Dan's got the actual wording for this. It's a bit of a pain, and I noticed that Lachlan's actually cast up all the bits to get another one of these made the same. He hasn't realised that it's a pain of a thing and that you'd be better off with something else on it. If I was making bits for a gauge glass for a Fowler I was restoring, I'd pick something else off the drawing list rather than one of these. But we won't get too eloquent about that. It's a bit of a dog of a thing. There are other reasons it's a dog of a thing as well. Mostly is because it's got screw down taps on it. And you can't, there's no visible indication of whether it's open or shut, which is a problem. And it drains off the tender, so you can't even tell most of the time whether the gauge glass is open or not without getting off and having a look under the engine. So when you open it, you can't tell whether it's shut or not, and when you're starting the boiler, you're not sure whether it is shut or not, either of them. So not a useful thing. Most, and certainly the later Fowler drain gauge glasses had like proper test cocks with like on-off taps, and there's quite a few refinements as you go on through time, and I've found that drawing up Mark's boiler clacks, because I discovered that they've actually got double isolation on them, which is really nice, whereas mine hasn't, been 4 years younger than the drawing I've got. Anyway, usually to see this, you've got to get down there, you've got to squat down in and behind that, right, in a hole with your head down and behind you, lower than your knees, and nowhere to actually kneel down or even get down there and have a look. And you put a pencil behind the tube, and if there's water in the glass, the pencil looks that way, and if there's no water in the glass, the pencil looks like a pencil. And if there is water in the glass, where it refracts through the water, that part of the pencil changes direction, and you've got a break in the pencil. Like you hold that at an angle, then this sort of becomes mirror, and you've got one piece, if there's 45 degree that way, you've got one piece of the pencil that's 45 degrees that way, or a stick or whatever. So that's a bit useless. It works, but it's nuisance. What I'd like to do, because this has got to come on and off, you can't put anything permanent on the back, but what I'd like to do is make a clip-on lens here, or a clip-on piece of tin here with stripes painted on it, so you can tell where the water level is, like the water level is, and that'd be very nice. So this is 6mm, a 1/4 inch. What I'd like is a little tin clip to clip on here in 4 places. Click, 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 that I can spot weld, or I can attach, or I can screw or pop rivet or something to a piece of tin, so that you've got a piece of tin with stripes on it, and you can just clip that. When you screw this on, it's got a bolt here to capture it. It goes in slots over that hole there, goes in and slots down, and then you do the screw up, and it can't come out through this slot because it's in the round part. Does that make sense? You do the screw up. But what I'd like to be able to do is clip a piece of tin on the back that's reliable and easy to take off and clean and all that sort of stuff. So you can take this off and clean it and put it back on if you need to. Or you can get it off easily and quickly to change a gauge glass if it pops or anything like that. You don't want something you've got to screw and unscrew, because if you do have a broken gauge glass and you've got to turn it off, you're sort of in a bit of a rush about that. So you can get tool clips like to hang up hammers and things, spanners and so forth, sockets at the hardware store. I wonder if you can get something that you can clip a 1/4 inch rod in. If anyone has seen anything or has any ideas about that, hit me up, would you? Because I'd be very keen to know. I've sort of drawn a blank on it. But if we can get something made up and put some stripy lines on the back of it, this will triple make this half as difficult to use, probably. Won't fix the tap problem, but it will fix the sight glass problem. So I'd be very interested to hear anyone who's got a solution to that. I don't, but there you go. That'd be very cool. We're probably pouring bronze next Tuesday, so I need to fix these and get these going. This is new bearings for those brasses, those bearings there. There's not a very big gap. I don't think you'd get anything substantial in there. You could probably just slip a bit of 1.6 aluminium in there, or 0.5 aluminium or something. Here's a bit here that I haven't folded up yet. That would go in there. What stops it falling out? That's the thing. Because you just slide it in one side and have a return on it so it doesn't fall out right through. But it's not really ideal. Something clipped on the back of it would be much better, rather than just have something to slide through like that. That's a good idea though, Bill. We might think about that. If there was a way to clip it, it'd be nice. 4 R clips, and they're a bit crap too. Anyway, giving that some thought. Don't want anything that jangles and comes loose or falls out or gets lost easily. 2 tool clips, or what did Bill say? Tool clips to suit. Yeah, a couple of little 1/4-inch tool clips would be very nice if you could get them. The other thing is that mechanical pencils and biros that have pocket clips have a very similar little tin clips. That's what we want, something like that. You can still buy red stripe watch like that, and if you were restoring another engine, yes, a red stripe water glass, something like that would be fantastic. And if you're restoring an engine, you wouldn't even bother putting this genuine one on. But because we've got a genuine Fowler one, I'd like to hang on to it. So we'd like to make it as user-friendly as we possibly can. Try chandlery. They have all sorts of weird shit. That sounds alright, Bill. I might try that. See, Bill's just at the point of his inebriation cycle where he's a useful man. And we appreciate that. Appreciate him. So, it's a bit of an eventful week. 2 3/4-inch rivets, that's right. It's all happening. Yesterday was the 3rd of June. Yesterday was the 3rd of June, which is the day Billy Joe jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Is that right? Yeah, I believe so. It's the day Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Is that right? Another Sleepy Joe. Anyway, that's how that went. At some point this week is Dead Duck Day, and you subscribe to Bill's channel for a more in-depth sort of interpretation of that as a historical, significantly scientific sort of a day. Or Google it and then watch Bill's channel. G'day, Dudley. Yeah, it's Dead Duck Day. Also this week falls the 6th of June. And on the 6th of June, by the light of the moon, there's Convoy Day. So it's one of those days, one of those weeks. There's a lot happened in history this week. I'm just saying. William Henry, g'day. Very, very big week for history. There you go. So yeah, 10-4, good buddy. Looks like we're getting us our convoy. So anyway, they are all the things that happened this week in history. Or not so reliable history, but that's what happened. Anyway, I'm looking for ideas about fixing this. 6th of June is special for many reasons. Mark has an anniversary on that day too. This is actually missing a couple of nuts too, so I guess that while I've got that here, that's another job that needs doing, is find a couple of express nuts to go on there, because I've got nothing else to do. I don't think this is original, this screw. It's not bad, but it's a bit of a fool of a thing, because if you only do it up finger tight, it tends to all rattle loose. And if you put a spanner on it, it's probably a bit too tight. I don't know how to fix that or what to do or what it should have. But it's a fairly ugly Fowler part. And that's another job we need to do. At some point I need to get onto some welding and do some of these jobs. One of them is to weld these up, which is the gibs for the lynch pins for the so these need a couple of weld spots on them and some wire rope on them. So that's something that needs doing. There's welding jobs all up. I'll probably get up and see, I don't know, I'll probably get up and see Mark at some point. I feel like I should have 2 foundry days this week, but I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. Don't know, what else? That pretty well covers it, I think. There's a lot of things going on this week. I don't feel like I've sat still at all, even a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty well it. Pretty well it. I think this 3D printer is probably going to go for a couple of hours after I finish here. Should have probably been home in time to start it before it went live. But anyway, it didn't happen. Hardware's crap. I'm not very impressed with good quality cabinet hardware or any other sort of hardware, to be honest. I'm having issues with it. When I put the canopy together for the roller, which was a while back now, it's 18 months, 2 years ago. 18 months at least, probably it's 2 years, I don't know, it might be longer than that. It's a couple of years. Don't know, no idea. But I couldn't get 5/8 Whitworth bolts, no one had them, so I got 2 UNC bolts, because that's all I had in a minute's notice. And I put them in, because they're basically the same thread. But they've got different size heads. So you get up on the roller with your to tighten the bolts up, and this last weekend, and you take a 5/8 and a 9/16 spanner up, because you think, well, there might be modern bolts, so they might be 9/16 Whitworth because they downgraded them all, or they could be 5/8, which is original spec. And when you get up there, you discover that they're 24 mil or 11/16. So you get down and you get 11/16 ring spanner, and you get a 24 mil ring spanner, and you get up there, and one of them fits and one of them doesn't. So you mess around and find another. It's just a pain having non-standard bolts. I'm not a fan, to be honest, even a little bit, of the whole non-standard bolt things. So if you're restoring an English machine, and a shifter's not the answer, because bolts on rollers, generally there's no room around them, and you've only got a quarter of a turn. You really want a ring spanner, and what you find is that it's up above your head or it's in an awkward spot, and every time you need let go of the spanner, it falls off, and you've got to pick it up and readjust it and fit it again, and then move it another turn, and then you've got to turn it over to get it the next one. Shifters aren't the answer. The answer is standard bolts, and the answer is probably making decent bolts for the thing. It's an ongoing and fairly, you've got to pick your battles a bit. And a lot of the Whitworth bolts I've put in it recently have been modern threads or modern sized nuts and bolts, and that's okay. But it's a pain in the backside, to be honest. If you could still get hex the right size, like you can't. Got this. This is inch Whitworth. That's what size that is. An inch Whitworth spanner fits this, and that's really nice. But it's also an odd size. It's 1.66 or something inches. 1.7, something like that. So you can't just even buy a metric, and especially in brass, you can't buy metric hex brass anyway. But you can't just buy a metric size that works. You've got to actually cut them all. But yes, it drives me nuts too. I'm really not a fan. I find everything I've got to do is a different size, and that annoys me. Anyway, that's my rant for tonight. I've kept off politics and I've kept off everything else. But my rant about non-standard bolt sizes is a pain in the, not a fan. To the point that if I'm restoring an engine from scratch, go to the trouble of making a batch of bolts for everything. Like, make extra bolts, and eventually you're going to have enough bolts to do it. Yeah. I don't think that very much is going to get fixed by Trump, but anyway, that's where I'm at with that. I'm really feeling that he's not the man. Not the man for the job, but anyway. He thinks he is, and that's cool. He hasn't got the power that he hoped he had, and if he had the power he hoped he had, he probably wouldn't be voting in the next election anyway over there. There is a standard, but in 1926 there was a standard too, just as much, and that standard's obsolete. That's the problem. So, you take care, Mats. Have fun with your lunch meeting. So that the motion covers have brass strip around them like this, see? I don't know if it's going to be demold, which is round on top, or like this. It could be demold. I don't know if I'm going to use this or not, because these bits aren't long enough. We might have to find some demold. But this is riveted in place, right? Rivet comes through from, this goes on a piece of 3mm sheet. It's not like this, but it's riveted on a piece of 3mm sheet. I didn't, Randy. I might go, I saw it there and I thought, maybe I should watch that. And originally I think it was riveted through from the back. The rivets went through from the back, and these were then over and filed down flat, which works, which means you've got to have a round head rivet or a countersunk rivet on the back. On this flat brass you could put a round head rivet on the front and leave it there and just rivet the back over, and that'd be less work. It's a lot more difficult to bend this inch by eighth flat round in a radius like this, a 3-inch radius like this on its flat, than demold is, because demold is a bit more forgiving because it's thinner on the edges and thicker in the middle, so you can stretch the edge round a bit and you don't notice it as much. Randy's got a new machine. I have to go and have a look at that. So that's why they use demold, is because on an edge like this, when you stretch it round there, because it's thinner on the edge, you don't get as ugly an inside edge. And Phil, being a blacksmith, he explained this to me. So anyway, the guys that are rolling the covers up are probably going to run this round for me too, so that's very good. Saves a lot of angst if they can make it fit the panel. But because of that, I'm not sure I'm big on strippers, but anyway, if that's your thing. Anyway, because of that, I need some brass rivets. That's what they're for. Take care, Kevin. It must be getting late. Hope to see a video from you soon. See what you're up to, what you're making. Or even an Instagram update. So, these are the only 4 bits of flat they had in stock, and they're offcuts, right? They're only a metre long, which I don't think is, by the time you bend this bit round here, I think it's about 150mm too short. And I called in to George Weston because I was coming right past there on the motorway on Tuesday, yesterday, and they never had any more of this. But I didn't ask them about demold, which was a bit stupid because I could have just picked up a couple of lengths of demold and done the job. So, this is all stuff that's going down, but I'd very much like to have the motion covers on before too long. That's where we're at with that. No progress on anything else. If I get a little bit of time this weekend, which is a long shot, but if I do get a little bit of time this weekend, I'd like to go around and borrow my mate's press and make these up. Press the middles out of them and bend them up. And that's the job. That put some paint on and they're done. Be excited to do that. Haven't checked the radius of this yet. Might take them out and try them on the 2-inch ball on the tow bar, but I think they're actually bigger than that. I think they're more like probably 2 1/4 or 2.5 inch radius, so might have to make up a die to press them yet, and we'll see how we go. Not a big deal to get a bit of steel and put a curve on it though. That's something we can do. So they're all the things that are going on in my life. Doesn't feel like I've stopped much. If you add up the things that are going on in my life, would add up the things that are going on in Dan's life, and add up the things that are going on in some of the other club members' lives, the Shannondale Steam Shed is a pretty busy schedule for the next few months. A lot happening. Dan's sort of trying to top himself via the prime number immersion method, which is sort of the best therapy you can get. And the prime number immersion method, where you put your head in 3 times and pull it out twice. And I think that's sort of the workload that he's taken on. Anyway, I run out of fingers and toes, and I'm probably not even busy compared to Fridge, to be honest, because he's doing other things as well. Like, he's not just got engines to restore and a club to sort out and instigate and get sorted. He's also going for accreditation as a railway driver, and he's working all over the town and never ever home, and yeah, there's stuff going on. He's got 100 acres to look after as well while we're at it. Hopefully Mark's workload's dropped off a bit in the last little while. I haven't had a chat to him, but hopefully he's a little bit back to normal for a little while. And I hope everyone else isn't working too hard. But that's what's happening with our lives. Anyway, I might call this. Really appreciate you tuning in to find out what's happening. I feel like this has just been a sit and talk sort of a video. I haven't actually, it's sort of feeling like a podcast more than an actual show and tell. I don't know if I've actually got things to show you, but next week, the things that I've done this week will probably went shopping's good. You buy new socks and jocks, Bill. Next week, some of these things that I've started this week will probably be looking more like things that have been done, and there'll be some casting sitting here on the bench and stuff. Anyway, I get a weekend at home. There's quite a few things. I might thread those 2 nuts. I might have a bit of a look at this. I might have a go at pressing these up. I might have some bearing brasses cast, like these, and a couple for William. I might have some plates here cast. I might have some aluminium brackets for a bandsaw cast for William. I might have a little bit more done, or quite a lot more done on the box. I might have some painting done. That doesn't sound like a full week at all, but that's how we're going at all. Anyway, I'm going to call it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you all. Hope your weather's doing good, and you're not too many crazy unnatural weather patterns happening in your lives at the moment. I think that's everywhere, but if you're lucky enough not to be, well, that's great. And I hope you're all well. But I'm out, and be kind to each other, and especially to me. And we'll catch you next time.